Time now also for Keller at Large. Here's Jon.
Good morning. You know, I first met Charlie Baker in the late 1980s when he was a wet behind-the-ears policy analyst at the Pioneer Institute, and he came into the tab newspapers where I worked to beg for advice about state government. Little did I know he would go on to serve 2 terms as governor of Massachusetts and go out as the most popular governor in the country. Go figure. Anyway, here he is for an exit interview. Governor, congratulations. Good to see you.
Thank you, John. And by the way, you obviously gave me some really good advice.
I don't remember what I told you, but it must have been great.
But I do remember the meeting.
You have followed it scrupulously ever since. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and well done, well done. So listen, back in 2019, when you filed the first bill here to legalize sports betting, you excluded colleges.
Yep.
And in fact, the legislation that did pass prohibits betting on in-state colleges. Yep. The NCAA strictly bans betting by participants in its sports, but it allows school sponsorships from gaming companies and the licensing of data for betting purposes. As you get ready to take over the NCAA, are you pretending that NCAA schools are walled off from gambling, or do you acknowledge the horse has kind of left the barn?
Well, first of all, I don't start that job until March, so I'm unlikely to speak for the organization at this point in time. I certainly think there are a whole bunch of issues that are going to matter a lot to collegiate athletics going forward. And one of the reasons the position was interesting to me is because we are in what I would describe as a bit of a transitional period for college sports. And done well, I think we can do things that make being a college athlete better than it's ever been, and done poorly, I think there are some real downside risks here.
Can you keep it gambling free? Is that realistic?
I don't know enough about that at this point in time to be able to answer that. You want to come back and talk about this one at some point?
Yeah,
down the road? Maybe we could talk about it then.
All right, okay. It's a day. Yeah. So this is not unique to you. Previous governors have also done this, but I'm curious about the decision to wait till the end of your time in office to issue pardons and commutations. Why wait?
I think part of the issue there is those are difficult decisions, not just for us, but people forget that this isn't the federal government. Pardons and commutations go through a pretty significant process and ultimately land in front of the Governor's Council, who has to make decisions with respect to these. We've done a significant number of these, and we didn't wait until the end of our administration. We did the first 2 significant commutations that have been done in Massachusetts. I think the folks at Parole sent those up to us in the spring, and I think sometime in the summer we forwarded them with an affirmative recommendation to the Governor's Council.
Well, it's the final year, though.
Yeah.
That's my point. I mean, to what extent is it a function of these being often highly politically charged?
I think they're just difficult decisions generally, because there's certainly some political issues there, but they're just difficult decisions, period. I mean, in many cases, you're wrestling with situations and circumstances in which somebody did something usually early in their life, and they've worked really hard to atone for whatever that thing was, but you still have all the issues associated with what actually happened once upon a time, and I think those are complicated.
What's the toughest?
We've done far more pardons and far more commutations than any administration, I think, going back to like probably the 80s.
What's the toughest decision you made over the last 8 years?
I would argue every decision that we made during the COVID pandemic was enormously difficult. I remember a reporter asking me at one point about one of the decisions I made early on, and he said, well, what do you think the reaction is going to be? And I said, some people are going to say it's a terrible decision, and some people are going to say it's a great decision, and I'm just going to have to live with every decision I make during the course of that period of time as one where probably nobody will be happy. And I think those decisions, just given the scale, and in addition to that, the sort of constantly changing footprint on data and information and everything else, which you and I have talked about, just made those really challenging.
We got to take our break, but in hindsight, any decision during that pandemic era that you'd like a do-over on?
Oh, there are a lot of them. But, you know, the one thing about public life in real time is you don't get a do-over. You basically have to play the hand and make adjustments as you go. And try to be really aggressive about making adjustments when you realize you have a problem that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah. All right, on that note, let's take a little break and we'll continue our conversation with Governor Charlie Baker in just a moment, so stay with us.